Okay. Good morning, everybody. Um, Today I'm super excited about this presentation, if you guys can't tell. And our attendance keeps growing, so it looks like everybody else is super excited about it too. Um, I'm not going to read their entire biographies, but we have Melissa Goodman and Nicholas Casarona from Mirror Incorporated with us this morning. And I'll let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves, and I will pass this over to you guys.
Hello. Thank you for having us here this morning. Nick and I have both been really excited about this presentation, and I'm going to introduce Nick kind of in the middle of my presentation. I have a really warm intro for him. No surprises, don't worry, Nick. But let me share my screen and get that going, and we will jump right in. All right. Are we good to go there?
Yes,
Let's see. Okay,
perfect.
awesome. Okay, wonderful. So my name is Melissa Goodman. I will be coming up on my 13 years in March with MIR. I started my career at the residential reentry center that we have in Topeka, and it's been, I always say this about working for MIR and the work that we do. One, it's hard to call it work most of the time. But the other thing is, it's been the biggest blessing of my entire life and getting to do things that we absolutely love. And so, one of the other great parts that I love about MIR is I've never run into any ceilings here. We have an incredible CEO and leadership team. And so, if there's a gap in the community and we can figure out a way to fill it, we're highly encouraged to do so. And I found that to be incredible over the years. And I get to marvel over the power of second chances every single day and get to see it play out. And so, that's incredible. MIR has been around since 1972. And our mission is to strengthen people and communities by helping individuals cultivate hope and redefine their lives. We are a nonprofit providing behavioral health care, substance use prevention, and residential reentry services. And so let me slip over to this next slide. So, reentry services, this is again where I started my career. At the residential reentry center I started as a case manager. Then I moved on to be an employment placement specialist, and we have and then I started as the program director. And I was an interim vice president of correctional services until I started in this role about 4 years ago as the vice president of reentry services. This role has been historically for the past few decades has been vice president of correctional services, and one of the things that I requested is that it be changed to vice president of reentry services because it brought us up to speed and aligned with the work that we're doing in the community now. So for those of you who haven't heard much about the residential reentry services we provide, I wanted to cover that. We have the federal halfway house. The challenging part about it is I wish that we could accept everyone because we get so many letters and emails of people who are still incarcerated at state prisons, and they ask how they get a referral to the reentry center. And unfortunately, the federal contract we have, it ties us just to having those in federal custody or those on their term of supervision in federal custody. So those referrals are initiated at the prisons, and then we get those referrals at the Residential Reentry Center or RRC/halfway house, however you want to say it. And those admissions, sometimes after COVID and the pandemic, we're seeing sometimes we get referrals for over a year. Our average daily census, even though we're much higher today, has been 63 people. Our average length of stay, so everyone who we get, they come at a certain custody level. And our goal for everyone at the reentry center is that they transfer eventually to home confinement, to where they're spending the last time that they have while they're in the Bureau of Prisons custody, in our custody, that they're spending it at home. And so what we're seeing great success with that is sometimes people have developed release plans because they're incarcerated across the entire country, sometimes these release plans are developed with people they haven't even met before until they release. And so sometimes those release plans fall through or they just don't work, or someone is not sober in the house, for many different reasons, sometimes they don't work. And so the residents can then call us. They can return to the reentry center and develop their own release plan where they're not paying rent and paying for meals and doing all these things, where they can really focus on developing a solid, safe release plan. We have a really high employment rate. What we've seen is our men and women, we hover over an 80% employment rate, and we're seeing people getting a lot of really great jobs, earning livable wages. And so the barriers that I saw 13 years ago, those have shifted over the years. And now, when I was an employment placement specialist about a decade ago, I used to have to show up to employers' front doors with cookies and snacks and bribery just to get them to answer our phone calls. And now we have employers who are coming to the reentry center and doing job fairs because they know that our residents, one, they're monitored. They provide, we have UA testing, we do GPS monitoring. Our residents are always going to be where they're supposed to be at, or most of the time. And so we've seen a lot of employers find that to be something they're very interested in. And so employment has been something that thankfully has just blown up. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Reentry Reframed at Mirror. Reentry Reframed is the umbrella and the concept about flipping the way that we view reentry. Because one of the things we hear often when we talk about reentry is people will say, "Oh, I don't work in reentry." And then I ask, "Well, do you work with the public?" And they're like, "Yeah." And so that's where we really say, well, then you work in reentry. If you work in public service, or if you work with the general public, you work in reentry in some capacity. So it's really about community mobilization to address recidivism, and with the idea, embracing the idea that if they succeed, meaning people who are struggling with incarceration, homelessness, substance use disorder, those often all overlap, then we all succeed. And so Reentry Reframed under the umbrella, we started with the Shawnee County Reentry Council, and from there we developed the Reentry Reframed podcast, which I highly encourage everyone to check out. Nick has a great episode. And then we have the Reentry Opportunity Conference of Kansas, and I will get into that here in a bit. So I wanted to touch on our podcast a little bit more. So the podcast all of these initiatives can be found at reentryreframed.org. And that's how you can listen on any podcast platform as well. But we have, 38 episodes with more than 8,000 downloads across the world. And I say that across the world because you can see in your statistics like where people are listening from. And I always think it's really neat to look and see like, wow, there's two listeners in Japan. How cool. And so anyways, I look at that. And so I kind of get excited about being able to say, oh, it's across the world. So our target audience for the podcast is really to reach people who are still incarcerated. And it's about resource sharing and then that installation of hope. So we're wanting them to hear from people like Nick and people from others who have navigated the system successfully. And now they're out here doing incredible things in the community. And so for the podcast, I also want to mention if you have a great story to share, or if you would like to get information out there, please send me an email, because we're always looking for dynamic, engaging guests for the podcast. So definitely want to plug that. So the Shawnee County Reentry Council, where did it all start? So this was back in the summer of 2021, and I've mentioned this before, so some of you might have heard this, but I have this, I think it's being like a Christmas baby. I have this horrible, like deep-rooted fear of people not showing up. And if you make something, will anyone even show up? And so this picture right here, this first meeting, It was during the pandemic and, or, you know, as things were pretty heightened. And I was unsure, although I had a lot of conversations with the people in this room, I had a lot of fear if anyone would show up. And so, as you can see, we were just packed in like sardines. And I started thinking, oh my goodness, I wonder if we're going to get any blowback because we had like, you know, so many people packed into that room. And so we always wanted to be a council of action. We didn't want it to be another quarterly meeting where we're all just sitting around identifying the problems and then not having any results stemming from this council. And so that was the last thing we wanted to do, is be another group that talked about the problems. We wanted to develop solutions. And so I always smile looking at this picture, just because many of the people in this picture are now out here doing incredible things in the community. And so we, as you can see, we needed a bigger space. And so that's where the Topeka Police Department came in with offering us a space to hold the quarterly meetings. And we've been doing that since our second meeting for the Reentry Council. And we've now grown to a council of a little over 90 members, and it's been incredible. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So as I said, we wanted to make sure that we developed that very first meeting. These are, even though we have each year, we have our year-end review of our goals and our action plan, and we also update it to see, like, are these still, you know, 4 years later, are these still the most pressing issues and barriers in our community? And so we're always working on, although we have those top 5 goals, we have an action plan for each of those goals. So addressing the housing crisis and providing landlord support, public advocacy for reentry in our community. That's where the podcast stemmed from. So Kristen Shook, who's the programs manager for our Work for Success programs, in that first initial meeting, as we started identifying our top 5 goals, she was the one who leaned over to me and said, we should start a podcast. And so that was a lot harder than I originally thought that it would be. We tried many different ways to get that going outside of a studio. Even I first thought, well, I'll just order a podcast kit from Amazon. And for those of you who have ever done any sort of like audio recording, that sounded like you would think it would sound when we started getting those segments out. They sounded like we were in a room and you could hear the wind blowing, and it was just so we got our stuff together and became legit in a studio. So but that was one of the things, is how can we share information about the power of second chances? How can we break these stigmas, and how can we reach people who are still incarcerated? So the other thing that went with that was the reentry conference as well. We also want to combat the not in my backyard opposition, because for those of you who have ever worked to try to get zoning for any sort of reentry programs, it's something that I have a lot of experience in, and it's something that is incredibly challenging, because people can agree like, oh yes, these programs are great, they're needed, all of these things, these are great. I just don't want it to be here. I just don't want it to be in my neighborhood. And so that's where we're seeing the biggest opposition when it comes to creating programs and zoning, especially for a residential center where people are going to be living. It's that zoning component. So we wanted to really start working on how can we spread this message of these services are so vital to our community. Accessing to identification for those reentering our community, peer support. We have a few incredible mentoring programs in our community that have really thrived, and those have been other initiatives, but we've supported those initiatives along the way. And then transportation. I'm sure in the communities where you're at, you're probably shaking your head or agreeing that these are probably some of your top barriers for individuals releasing to your community as well. And so I highlighted our mission at the bottom that has not really changed over the past 4 years. I've just wordsmithed it a bit, but the spirit has remained the same. So I have some pictures over the years. These are just some different activities. So what we do with the Reentry Council is we start where we always have either a video or a guest speaker that connects us to our mission for why we are there, and it really fuels up our tanks to get the meeting started off with the right tone. So typically, we have the videos that we play between 4 to 5 minutes, and I have a video I'm going to show you guys as well. Then we learn from our community partners. We have 1 to 2 presentations at the Reentry Council so we can hear what are other people doing. And there are so many times that others will hear like, wow, I had no idea this resource existed in the community. And so that's our hope, is to spread resources and resource sharing information. So if you are in this area and you would like to present at our Reentry Council, again, send me an email. We're always looking for really good presenters. We do activities like this activity up here just to show the connection to one another. So we are always looking for presenters. And then we started thinking, this is Corey Thiessen. She recently retired from the Bureau of Prisons as the Reentry Affairs Coordinator. And her idea, she's very gifted as far as getting people in the same room. And just she kept dreaming about, we need to do a statewide reentry conference. You know, let's do the Reentry Council, but let's do an annual statewide reentry conference. And so her idea for the Reentry Opportunity Conference of Kansas, she kind of threw it out there as an idea, and then we all ran with it. And so I always like to give her credit. Again, she has a great podcast episode as well. That's where she's in our studio. So the Reentry Opportunity Conference of Kansas was established in 2020. Well, it actually was started at the year-end review in 2023. And the planning committee, we have 10 people on the planning committee. They've done an incredible job. There's a lot of work that goes into planning a statewide conference with hundreds of people. And so what are at the Rock, we believe that everyone deserves a brighter tomorrow, no matter your background. And as you can see in these pictures, I always love these pictures of the big group, because they just show the excitement and, again, the spirit of the conference. I have a video that I'm going to play that shows some highlights and will give you a better idea of what the conference looks like. And so this was we have videos from each year, but this is from last year, from 2025. And so I hope you all can hear the music, because it's got some little upbeat music for this morning. Can you guys hear?
I'm not hearing any music or any sound.
No.
And Melissa, I'm not sure how to help you with that because I ran into this issue a couple presentations ago.
I will say it looks amazing though.
Oh, I'm so bummed that you guys couldn't hear the music because it's just like like it's so good. I have one more video about our workforce success programs, and so I'm worried because that video, that music is like, okay. So if anyone knows how to solve that problem, because I can hear the music. So, anyways, that is, I'm going to move on to, so the reentry conference next year will be in Wichita. We are very, very excited about so we have this great space in Topeka at Stormontville at the hospital. They have a conference room and breakout sessions and classrooms and that great stuff. So it would have been really comfortable to do it in Topeka another year since we did our first 2 years at that same venue, and it was a free venue and something that a place we really loved and felt welcome. So it would have been very easy and comfortable to do it again in Topeka, but we want to be a statewide conference, and that means moving locations to give other people opportunities who might not have been able to travel to Topeka, but they could come to Wichita. And then next year or the year after, we could look at Kansas City and other parts of the state. So being a mobile conference, that was something that was really important to us. And so we have this incredible space at the National Center for Aviation Training. It's in Northeast Wichita, and it is just gorgeous, very high tech. The classrooms are neat. And then our theme for this year, so we have a different theme. We started with Ignite the Change. That was the first year. Second year was Fan the Flame. And this year is going to be, we just came up with it a few weeks ago. So it's cleared for takeoff. And um, there's a second part to it. But anyways, it's an aviation theme since we'll be in the aviation capital of the world. And so you can just imagine all like the fun things that will come with that. So pencil in save the dates at the end of September. So we will have information. And if you're on Facebook, we're the Reentry Opportunity Conference of Kansas. You can follow us on our website at reentryreframe.org. We'll have updates, registration information. And if you are interested in attending, but registration, paying the fee is an issue, please reach out to me because we don't ever want that to be a barrier for someone to be able to attend the conference. And so, yeah, we're really excited about next year. And probably the biggest impact from the reentry conference has been the connections that we've made, but also one of my favorite parts about the conference are the lived experience panels. Those always people absolutely just love that part of the conference. And so we're going to blend that in even more into this year and probably have it both days just because people have truly like loved that part of the conference. Oh, also part of our reentry services, we've had our Work for Success programs in Topeka and Lawrence. The Work for Success program used to just serve fathers, and it was the fatherhood program, and that started around 2014. And so that has developed over the years to we're able to serve mothers and fathers. And then we also have an employment program to where we don't have to turn anyone away. So we can, just because you don't have minors in the home or you have minors who might be in state custody or with family members, you can still do the program. So the stability services that we're focusing on, a lot of times we're seeing people, there's so much overlap between substance use disorder, homelessness, and incarceration, sometimes all three of those combined. Our graduates report what we're focusing on, the developing a budget, having financial literacy courses. There's a strong focus on the workforce development piece. We have presenters come in from all over who talk about resources, accessing medical care, just everything that you can think of. And then there's a strong focus on developing those relationships with children because, again, many of our graduates have been experiencing homelessness, incarceration, or oftentimes they're getting out of treatment programs. And so the Work for Success programs have been a really great tool for or a line of service to have with that continuum of care. to where someone needs that additional support after they release from a treatment program, jail. So one of the things we like to really encourage our participants is that our doors are always open. And so we see a lot of our graduates come through and they celebrate fun moments with us. They also come back when they're at a crossroads. And so we make sure that it's not ever, we don't ever cap it at a certain amount of time. If they did the program 2 years ago and they come through and all they need is a pair of work boots to help them on their path to success, we're going to do everything that we can to meet those needs. We have some small grants that funnel into our Work for Success program that allow us to be flexible with how we're meeting those basic needs and meeting them quickly. So not if they need their identification, not checking back in a few weeks, we likely will be able to take them within that day or two to get their identification. So this program has been incredibly helpful in our community. I can't say enough good things about the staff who work for this program. And we recently learned that we will have our funding renewed for an additional 2 years. So it's been a very happy time as well. And these services are at no cost to the participant. So I do have a video. I wasn't sure if anyone has ideas about how to play music because I might skip the video if everyone can't hear.
Melissa, if you stop sharing and
Oh,
then
I can't hear you,
reshare,
Nick.
there's an option on your share options to include
Nick, we
audio.
can't
I
hear
can't
you.
remember. Can you hear me
Oh
now?
no.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I
Can you
can
guys
hear
hear me?
you.
Yeah, I think it's her microphone. Take off your
I was gonna say I can hear you, Nick, but yeah.
microphone. Yeah, hold on. Let me chat her real
Hold on,
fast.
guys.
She's
Sorry.
going.
Let me.
Somebody
I
did drop it in the chat as well.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. I don't know why I can't hear anyone else. If someone can say something.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, sorry. I think my
So I
earpiece.
think once you start, it starts going and you hear the music on your side, it cuts off your microphone. So if you want to stop sharing real fast,
Yeah.
and then when you go to reshare your screen, there's options for sharing sound.
Okay. So stop share. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
hey Melissa, you may have to take your audio from your microphone to your computer audio to do that. So,
Okay. Thank you guys for being working through this. You know, we're just all about adapting and doing these. Okay, so computer, leave computer.
So I can see your mouth moving, so we can't hear you or the music still. I'm trying to see if there's anything I can do from
well,
my end.
let me try something, Melissa. Let me try to steal your share, but you might not be able to hear me if I do. So I I need you to share. I was going to steal the remote. I don't have your slides. I can't even hear you. Hold on. It's not letting me because it's your Canva.
Mm.
I'm a PowerPoint person.
I am furiously Googling. I'm trying to trying to help. I wonder if it's because it has something to do with it being like a Canva presentation and not like a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I don't know. I love technology when it works. Well, yeah, then throw me in there, huh?
I'm just offering a suggestion. Would it be better to have Nick share and then go back to her? Just a thought. Hmm.
Okay, Nick, can you see my screen? Okay, if you can present and I will go for you.
Oh, Nick, now you're muted.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful technology when it works. I will jump in quickly. I know Melissa had an introduction, but I'll just introduce myself. Nick Casarona, and I am the Director of Treatment Operations for MIR. So I oversee the operations side of all of our substance use treatment programs across the state. More importantly to me personally, in that introduction is that I'm also a person with lived experience from substance use, mental health, incarceration, and all of the things that come with that. And so for me to have the opportunity to be where I'm at today is only through the support of countless, countless individuals along that path. More importantly, countless opportunities to be connected to resources and to services and to peer support. And so, working for an organization where the CEO and board are not afraid to allow someone with the history that I have to move up to the ranks and have a voice when it comes to identifying ways that we can better serve our communities, it has been an absolute blessing. A lot of you, I see a lot of familiar faces on here, or names at least, but a lot of you are aware of the services of MIR. And when people hear MIR, traditionally immediately think of our residential treatment programs. So I highlight those first because I think that that is, for a lot of people, the starting point of that journey. That's what most people think. I will get to my beliefs and where we've shifted in that thinking here when we go on to some additional slides. But we have residential treatment centers in Newton, Shawnee, Kansas, which I love when I have a statewide group because when I say Shawnee and then I follow it up with Topeka, people say, well, isn't Topeka in Shawnee County? So when I speak of our Shawnee location, that is Shawnee Mission, Kansas, which is in the Johnson County area and the Kansas City metro area. And then again, we have our residential treatment center in Topeka. And then really excited to talk about MIR at Broadmoor. For those of you in the Wichita area, it's amazing that there were a lot of people even working in the same space that we all work that were unaware of the fact that MIR had a residential treatment center in Wichita because it was called Reflections. We have the opportunity to open up a new program that I will talk pretty deeply about because it is a huge gap in the state of Kansas and we're super excited for it. But we changed location, so we still have our adult treatment in Wichita. And then by the end of this month, after about a year and a half of hurdle after hurdle, a lot of planning, a lot of all hands on deck, a lot of support from the community, from legislation, from our board, from every employee of MIR, we are going to be opening and extremely excited to open a new adolescent residential treatment center in Wichita, which will serve a much wider population of adolescents from the ages 12 up to 17. It will serve male and female. And so, with that comes a lot of different challenges as far as juggling and navigating the demographic based on referrals. And when I say that, what I'm speaking to specifically is the fact that, based on those referrals as we're building up our census, there are times where we may have to cap how many adolescents we have in the facility at one time, even though we have additional empty beds, simply based on the demographic of what's being referred in. Anyone that's in this space understands, or that has children understands, if you have youth that are battling substance use, and say you have a 12 and 13-year-old boy in treatment, and then you have a 16 and 17-year-old boy in treatment, it's not necessarily going to be a healthy thing to have them in the same groups. Or if you have one female that's referred and currently have all male in the facility, we may have to push out the females intake until some of the males transition through. So there's a lot of discovery there, but we're blessed to have a facility that will allow us to navigate that and have a much wider reach and being able to serve adolescents in the state, which has been proven to be a huge gap for our state. One thing I think that often gets missed when we do talk about our residential treatment programs is that we also provide social detox. Being that this is a group that is primarily focused on the unhoused population, one of the biggest barriers that we see in our system is that, and this isn't directed at any specific program or regulation, but wherever it came from, I don't know, as a person lived experience, but we had this crazy expectation that when an individual shows up for a scheduled bed date to residential treatment that they've now waited 6 weeks to get to, that they have this magical switch to shut off their using 5 or 6 days before they come in so that they can participate in treatment. And as MIR, we identified that as a flaw in the system because people were showing up and then we would end up having to turn them away and try to get them in detox or to a hospital to become detoxed or medically appropriate for treatment and then get back into our doors. And this is asking people that have already navigated the endless amounts of challenges over the wait period on wait list to get to that space. And so we became licensed to provide that social detox. Of course, there are medical factors that have to be considered where medical clearance is required when someone has a history of seizures, pregnant females, certain medical ailments such as, extremely high blood pressure. There's a variety of things, different levels of intoxicity that we need medical clearance because we just don't have the medical capacity to keep those people safe, but we help navigate that and facilitate that connection so that they are able to participate in their 28-day treatment program. We do currently offer reintegration services at 3 of those locations. That is Topeka, Newton, and Shawnee. We are currently not offering reintegration at the Wichita location simply because of bed capacity. That's not to say it's off the table. We just right now are designating all of the beds available there for people to get into residential treatment. We have outpatient services at all 4 of those locations. We also offer, Melissa jumped through the slides, so she just wants to test me to see in my new role if I can name this without looking, and I can. We have outpatient at all 4 of those areas. We have outpatient at Anthony and Medicine Lodge, which don't ask me where that is specifically because I've never been there and don't know, but I know it is in rural Kansas. We have outpatient that we recently reopened in Lawrence, which is where I'm sitting today. And we do a lot of different work in Lawrence and Topeka. We offer a robust telehealth program that serves all of Kansas. And so I know that's what I love about having the opportunity to present to this group is you're representing the entire state of Kansas. I will say in my experience working in this field, we do we don't do our best when it comes to these coalitions of representing the entire state. You usually have a lot from Northeast Kansas and a lot from the Wichita area. And I love just simply, in communication with KLS that she's in Garden City because we need to make sure that these services are available for everyone statewide. And we, are excited that we are able to fill some of those gaps through telehealth. Um, Obviously, as a state, we can do better and we need to do better, but we collaborate with providers across the state. We do offer the medication assisted treatment statewide, which would probably raise some questions when I say that. And, something that we will do that is fairly new and it still has a lot of challenges and factors to work out, but we will offer medication assisted treatment to our telehealth clients. It can become challenging depending on where their location is because we have to ensure that when we are doing this, that the clients that we're serving are doing it safely. And so we have the ability to get individuals that are in telehealth, regardless of where they're at in the state, connected to our medical director who will meet with them remotely, who will make that assessment and determination of whether they are appropriate and meet the clinical need for the medication assisted treatment. And then we coordinate the delivery of those medications to that individual. Obviously, there's risks involved with that because we are now relying on an individual that could be living in Garden City to be appropriately utilizing the medications while participating in treatment. And so, in order to make those arrangements work, we can't do it alone with ourselves and the client. We have to have partnership in those geographic areas, whether that's through supervision or through primary care, anyone that can help us in the sense of supporting the facilitation of the UAs, regular UAs, to ensure that they're using the medications appropriately, not diverting it or abusing it. And so it is fairly new. And I will say that there's a lot to be learned in that space, but Mira is at least willing to take on the challenge because we recognize the need and we recognize the fact that if there's so much evidence to support this modality of treatment, then every person in Kansas should have access to it, regardless of where they live. And so we are working through those challenges. Melissa, you can go on before I get in rabbit holes. This is our new space again in Wichita, just to touch on that. It's a beautiful location that will have all of these levels of care, as well as adolescent and adult. We do offer peer mentoring through all of our programs, case management, but in a lot of our areas, we recognize the value and the importance of collaboration and partnership. And so while I say we offer peer mentoring and case management in our residential settings, it stays in the residential setting. And then when they move into outpatient, sometimes depending on where those clients are, it makes more sense to hand off that duty or that responsibility to partnerships with agencies across the state, such as SAC, such as RADAC, who have robust community-based aftercare wraparound services that have the capacity to ensure that the clients are getting connected to every possible resource they need, whether that's employment, whether that's mental health services, whether that's just someone with lived experience that can walk them through those doors. We partner with agencies all across the state to ensure that our clients are receiving all of those services. Go ahead, Melissa. Now, this is where I will get down rabbit holes because this is probably one of the programs that I am most excited for and most proud of because where these pictures are taken is where I started my recovery journey. We have some extremely supportive administrators of Shawnee County Department of Corrections and the jail who have truly broken down every single institutional, unintentional barrier within the facility and partnered with us to allow us to have the opportunity to build a peer program in collaboration with Shawnee County Jail. And when I talk about those institutional barriers, for anyone in this meeting that has ever worked in a correction setting, whether that is a prison, a county jail, even in some corrections offices, there's a lot of very real, very understandable institutional unintentional barriers of we can provide services over in this part of it, but you can't go over to this part, or you can do it at this time, but not at this time. You can serve this person, but not that person. Just things that are in place to protect the facility and protect the individuals. But collaboratively, Shawnee County has worked with us to identify that we can allow people with lived experience to go in there and provide an amazing support system for these individuals. What's important for us in this is that through my own journey, through the individual in the top picture to the far right's journey, between the two of us, we've been booked in this exact jail 40 times, and they allow us to come in there and work with them in the jail and develop a program to help all these smiling faces below. We are able to not just get people assessed while they're in jail, but if we need to, we can sit in someone's cell with them on a cell phone or with a laptop to ensure that assessment can be done. We don't have to wait until this space is available or have it scheduled and have to cancel it because there's a lockdown. We can literally move everywhere we need to in that jail to ensure that an assessment can be completed, to ensure that every single person that walks out of that jail has the ability of getting connected to the next step in their journey in that reentry process. Through my own experience, through Adam's experience, the other individual in the photo to the far left came through Mir's residential reentry federal system, and he is now the program director of our Topeka Treatment Center. So we see the value and the impact of the peer lens being incorporated into all the work that we do. And through that, we've been able to pull some just amazing data in our first year in this program at the jail. That has led to opportunities at other jails where we also have services in Douglas County Jail. Pretty similar, same services. We're just moving even further upstream because what we've identified in Shawnee County is that there's still people that land in the jail, book in, and are released so fast that we're not able to catch them and get them connected. And so in Douglas County, it's still not perfect. There's still work for us to find better ways to do it. But what we do there is we've incorporated a clinical screen or non-clinical screening tool called Cage Aid, which is just 5 questions that have been incorporated into the bookend screening. No different than when they ask if you're having thoughts of harming yourself. They ask 5 questions, and if that individual answers yes to any of those 5 questions, they automatically get flagged. And then our peer mentor gets an email list the next morning of every individual that was booked the previous day that was flagged as being at risk for substance use. And our peer mentor is able to engage with them immediately the next morning and determine if they want services first and foremost, and then what we can do to help them and ensure that they have the resources that they need when they finally walk out of that jail, whether it's the next day or 9 months down the road. We will continue to work with them to ensure that that happens. We do quite a bit of work with the unhoused population in all the areas that we work in. We do a lot of work in the Lawrence community. We also have work that we do in the Harvey County Jail, and we're continuing to expand. I talked earlier and alluded to earlier just the fact that when people think about individuals with substance use and they think that that first step is either detox or residential treatment. At Mirror, we have shifted our thinking to the fact that that's just the first gate, that's the first door they can walk through. But there's many ways for us to open the doors and open the gates to create new pathways for individuals. And so I love the fact we get the opportunity to present to this group I think the unhoused population is a population that is really underserved in this space, misunderstood in this space. And we see a very high rate of individuals that come from being completely unsheltered into a residential treatment environment and not complete treatment. And people ask why. Well, we need to first start shifting our thinking to understanding that we're taking someone out of an environment that, regardless of what we think, is what has become comfortable for them. And then we're dropping them into this completely structured environment surrounded by strangers with all these rules. And we're wondering why they panic and leave in the first 3 days. And so we are working diligently to identify better ways to make that connection to serve the unhoused population, better ways to connect with the countless homeless outreach and homeless initiatives across the state. And so I would encourage any of you in your space, if you have ideas, you have any conversations, questions in regards to that population and how we can collaborate and do better to serve that population, please do reach out. Yes, and 28 days is just not enough. And in a perfect world, we could keep people for, we at least give them options, to stay longer. But I think the important thing is not just looking at how we can make treatment longer, but how do we open up the gates on the front end and give more people the opportunity to get day one. If they get day one, they have a fighting chance to get day two, day three, so on and so forth. And so that's where we shift focus at times, is to identify spaces to better connect people to services. So I don't know where Melissa's at on slides. I know where we're at on time. I will say briefly that we do have a amazing team providing prevention in our STAND program. This is primarily in the Harvey County and surrounding county areas. I think it's 3 counties. Correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa. Well, the counties are listed there, or the regions. I don't know exactly which ones are counties and towns. I'm a Topeka guy. But what STAND is a prevention, moving even further upstream, does everything from the teen intervene program, have a robust peer program with the students. We do amazing work in the prevention space, and it has been one that has been a foundation of our efforts to move further upstream and try to catch these youth. And then I don't know that part, Melissa, you're gonna have to speak to that one. Oh, that's just the numbers, sorry. So we do serve Harvey, McPherson, Reno, and Marion counties. I want to cut it off there because I will not pretend to be able to speak in depth about our prevention program, but I want to leave a little space if there's any questions. I saw the chat, Melissa. I thought I saw a question about the conference. No, I
Am
can't.
I echoing now?
No.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so embarrassed and sorry.
You're good. I think there's a question about when the next conference is, or if we have dates.
Yes. Hold on real quick. It'll be the 20, I'm sorry if I'm echoing. I'm gonna walk away. It will be the 29th and 30th of September.
Any other, Kayla, I can't see all of the chat questions. It's letting me scroll through some of them. Are there any other questions that we can touch on with the last 5 minutes?
Yeah, there's one question in the chat. Do you think the state will ever recognize that 28 days is not enough for residential treatment and extend the time that they allow for clients to be inpatient?
So I can't speak on behalf of Mir on that. I can't speak on behalf of the state. I can speak on behalf of just my personal opinion. And I will just say that we're moving into a space of a lot of uncertainty. And I think that goes beyond just the state of Kansas. I think that there is enough of an understanding that what we're doing just isn't enough, period. And I would hope to see that we start identifying better ways to keep people connected to services longer. If we cannot extend residential treatment, we can do great things without extending residential treatment, but achieve the same goals through housed IOP, supportive housing programs that keep people a safe foundation in order to participate in that clinical aspect. We can expand our peer programming across the state, literally in every venue. There's a lot we can do. There's some amazing evidence from other states that provide longer term treatment programs, but from a current landscape of funding and the direction that we think we're going in funding, I think it will be challenging to extend residential treatment. I think the focus will be more on extending the different options for individuals to stay connected to support, whether that's clinical or not. I don't know if that answered the question.
Well, this was so great. Thank you both so much. And I'm sincerely sorry about the audio difficulties. I thought I was advanced in tech, but I am not. So I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so embarrassed.
Absolutely don't be. I thank you both so much, and I expect to hear from you because being in Garden City on the western side of the state, we have those resource deserts. And I feel like I'm always want to advocate for our rural and our frontier counties on the western side. So I'm always interested to hear what's going on across the state and the programs and services being offered. And I'm jealous and I'm thankful of both of you guys and everything that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. We did put our emails in the chat, and I will say to what you just said, Kayla, and anyone else on this meeting that might be thinking the same thing, don't ever hesitate to reach out to Mayor just because you are on the other side of the state. We will do everything in our power to navigate the transportation barrier, any barriers that are in place to get a client in treatment. We will do what we can to help them. And sometimes that means just getting on the phone and talking and hearing it and making a case by case decision and trying to do what's best for the client and what is within our capacity.
Thank you so much, Nick. And thank you, Melissa. This was so great.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, that's all. I'll have this